Today on Mormon Times, we celebrate our pioneer past with incredible stories of faith. President Henry B. Eyring reflects on his personal heritage.
I think that probably I grew up with the feeling that my family were ordinary, but our roots were not ordinary.
Filmmaker T.C. Christensen recounts miracles from the Willie Handcart Company.
I couldn't have written stories that are this incredible.
And a fifth-generation fiddler, Ryan Shoup and the Rubber Band, will entertain us with some bluegrass music. Good morning and welcome to Mormon Times. In July 1847, the first company of pioneers entered the Salt Lake Valley, and it was here at the mouth of Emigration Canyon that Brigham Young first exclaimed, "This is the right place, drive on." As we prepare to celebrate Pioneer Day later this week, today we take time to honor those early settlers. I'm up at This Is the Place Heritage Park. It's the 450-acre living museum, and we've got a great show planned. To start off, I had the opportunity earlier this month to sit down with President Henry B. Eyring. We talked about his pioneer roots. Glad that you'd take a few minutes to talk to us about pioneer heritage and all the great things about Utah and what they did for us. But why do you think it's so important to honor our past and preserve our history?
I think the key word is honor. It really makes a difference because if you look up to those who built the foundation on which you're standing, it gives you both courage and motivation. It's really helpful.
So, if Brigham Young were standing up here in the same place where he came all those years ago and looked out over the valley, what do you think he'd say?
If he's listening, I have to be careful. I don't know what he'd say. He'd be pleased. He wouldn't be surprised. He saw the growth. He saw the progress. I would think he would, as he looked at it, say, well, there's still things to be done. You're still growing. There's still various kinds of progress, but he worked on cooperation. He was preoccupied with the idea that the only way they were going to build a self-sustaining economy, so isolated away from everything out here in the desert, was if people really learned to work together well. If he was going to say one suggestion, he would say, you're still working on what I worked on. You'll never be able to have the economic success you want to have, we need to have. You'll never be able to bring these people together unless we learn how to be less selfish, more cooperative. If you asked him which was the hardest problem, I'd think he'd say, I don't have any problems. He didn't. He was a person that just did things. He might have picked one if he had to do an interview, he might have picked one. But the fact is, he didn't think in terms of problems. He thought far more in terms of opportunity, what had to be done. Let's get in and do it. I loved, for instance, he was asked what it's going to be like in the kingdom where there's gold in the streets. And he said, well, if there's gold in the streets, we will have mined it, we will have refined it, and we will have put it there.
How do you think we have built on improving on the dreams and hopes of the pioneers, what they envisioned this valley and this place becoming?
Well, all you have to know is just take a look out here where we are and see the valley filled. And you know that one of the dreams was Brigham Young is at least reported to have said that he had a vision of this valley. The reason he could say this is the place, he'd seen it. But he saw it in the future filled almost the whole valley. And so I think if they could see it, they would not be surprised.
I know you have lots of great stories.
Yeah.
But what story that you know gives you greater appreciation for the pioneers and all that?
I'll pick one that picks up some of the things that I've already said. John Benyon, my great-grandfather, kept a diary for 21 years every day, everything that he did. And he came here from England. Poverty was his life. He knew nothing about farming. In fact, the good story is that his first farm, the two Benyon brothers, began out in Taylorsville, and he plowed, and he didn't know how to plow. I mean, he was a city boy who'd grown up in factories, and he had no clothing, and so he wore a swallowtail coat when he plowed crooked lines, and his neighbors called him Gentleman John. You know, we think of the pioneers as being these outdoorsmen. They were often city people, often from poverty. They had to learn what to do. And so to me, the best thing I think of is not a single story, but is his life that he recorded. And there's two or three things about the recording of it. He thought he was important. It's really interesting. He wasn't just some poor little person out there on a farm, 40 acres. He was building Zion. And he really had this feeling of saying, I'm not doing this for me. I'm not even doing it for my family. I'm doing it for God. And there's an interesting optimism and drive that comes out of that story. I think that probably I grew up with the feeling that my family were ordinary, but our roots were not ordinary. I grew up on stories of pioneering in Mexico. I grew up on stories of pioneering here. And I think that's all I would suggest, is that it's interesting what they all have in common. A feeling of saying we can do it. A feeling of we can do it. And the we can do it was a very lofty kind of a thing.
We know that there are always great lessons to be learned from the past. And how do you see what we learn influencing our future?
I would think that you have to read a little bit of, like John Bunyan's diary or some history, to appreciate the difficulties of the past. There's been such improvement in technology and in so many things that by going back, we get an appreciation for a change for the better. And although there's always talk about how the world is getting worse, what's really impressive as you look back is how much things have gotten better for the people.
It was an honor to sit down with President Eyring. He'll be representing the Office of the First Presidency later this week in the Days of 47 parade. You can catch the parade coverage live on KSL TV Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Coming up next, a family business rooted in our pioneer past.
It's just the building of the testimony of their ancestors, the spirit of Elijah, if you would.
How these modern handcarts help teach valuable life lessons. And T.C. Christensen, writer, producer, and director of the popular film 17 Miracles, will talk about some of the inspiring true pioneer stories from his film. Lacking funds for full ox or horse teams, thousands of Mormon pioneers journeyed west from Europe, pushing handcarts like these. Those handcart pioneers have come to represent the faithfulness and sacrifice of the pioneer generation, a legacy that one Utah businessman works to keep alive every day.
I love dealing with people. I love dealing with historical facts and be able to build things and restore them. My father, Stanley, and myself, we built this wagon from ground up. We started having people come over and saying, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? And I just kind of exploded from there. We're a full service carriage business.
And then we're gonna go harness them up if we can find them.
We also do the hand carts. Provide hand carts for every kind of function. 17 Miracles, we are the provider for the hand carts in that movie. And from movies to church events to school events. In fact, more people find out about it, the more popular it gets. My father, my great-grandfather, my grandfather have all been either around horses or pulled things with horses. My wife's family was part of the Willie Handcart company. For me, there's no greater respect than to respect what they have gone through, to keep it alive, to remember it. The stories that come back from Trek, it's physical labor. It humbles us, and to the point where we turn to Christ and we turn to our Heavenly Father to count on everything. When we hear the histories and the journals of people or individuals, and you hear the same stories, and you're living just a little bit of what they went through, you can't help but gain respect for them. To me, it's the utmost respect for my father to be able to carry on his wish and her traditions, as well as my great-grandfather and my great-great-grandfather. And hopefully my boys will carry on the tradition.
In May of 1856, members of the Willie Handcart Company were excited to leave Liverpool, England, and join the Saints in the Salt Lake Valley. Their journey was filled with lots of heroism and lots of hardship. And filmmaker T.C. Christensen documented many of these miracles that occurred in his film 17 Miracles, and also in the book More Than Miracles. We're glad that you could join us here today.
I like to be here.
And what made you want to tell all these stories? Lots of great stories.
Do you know, for me, it was really a matter of these were the best stories I could find. When I was looking for some material, I just realized this is the best movie that I know of that I could make right now.
One of the quotes that Albert Einstein, one thing he said is, you can live your life as if everything is a miracle or as if nothing is a miracle. Do you think that these saints viewed every day as a miracle?
I don't think they did so much. I think they lived like we do. They just thought they were just on a journey getting to Zion, and I think it was many years later when most of them looked back and realized, wow, there were some pretty spectacular things that went on.
And some of these miracles you tell, they were all amazing, but I especially like the one about Albert.
Yeah, Albert was, I love the character of Albert. Albert was a disfigured little man, and someone in their journal wrote he was the most disfigured traveler I ever saw. But he had a commitment, and he said, I'm going to walk every step to Zion. And he made it 300 miles on crutches. To me, that's a miracle.
It is a miracle. So another inspiring story, it seems like they all had to do with many of them with food, probably because they were all hungry.
Yeah, they were hungry. They didn't really need a ticket to Disneyland. They needed something to sustain them in nourishment.
And the story about the pie, that's quite a miracle.
Yeah, I love that story. Louisa Meller looks down, she's with her mother, they're alone, and she sees a pie that's been left there, and they take it and eat it. And I think that was an amazing miracle because they were given not just nourishment, they were given a comfort food. They were given a pie, not an American pie. When I started to film that, I thought, oh, well, I need to get a cherry pie. They're British, and to them, a pie would have been meat and potatoes, and that's a pie to a British person. And so they were eating something that they would have been raised on, and it was a comfort food for them.
But you have to think, how could that have happened? I mean, that is amazing.
To me, I think what happened is that day, somewhere in the world, probably somebody who loved the Mellers baked a pie and it turned up missing. I think that too because my grandfather, Henry Tanner, was a missionary in the southern states in the 1880s. And he and his companion were walking down a dirt road starving. They looked down and they saw a pie. He went to eat it. His companion said, no, it's rat poison, don't eat it. But he liked food like I like food, I think. And he went in and started gnawing down on it and ate the pie, only to find out months later that very day one of his aunts had baked several pies, placed them into windowsill to cool, and upon returning, one of them was missing, the exact type of pie that he found there on the road.
Was it your intent that we all learn something from these stories? I mean, there's a timelessness to them. They can apply to us, can't they?
Yeah, I think they do. My intent really is just I kind of throw it out there, and people take different things from it. I've had people tell me, you know, I could only count 5 miracles in that whole film. What are you talking about, 17? And I've had others tell me, I counted 30. Huh. So it's the kind of film that I hope is up to the individual, what they can take out of it.
So inspiring. Thanks so much, TC. Glad to have you
I
here.
know, it's fun to
Good
be
to
here.
see you. Up next, it's your chance to experience history with a family field trip. We'll tell you about 3 fun hikes that have a pioneer past, trails that'll whisk you back in time and give you an appreciation for our heritage. A longtime Pioneer Day tradition in downtown Salt Lake City is the annual Days of 47 parade. For months now, members all over the valley from dozens of stakes have been working on floats bearing spiritual messages related to this year's Pioneer Parade Day theme, which is Pioneers Building on the Dream. Let's take a sneak peek at what they've been working on. It'll be almost impossible to miss this creation by the Salt Lake Stake.
The theme of this float is Flying to Zion, a Pioneer Daydream.
A daydream indeed, especially for the mastermind behind this creation.
It's 50 feet long, 6 feet in diameter at the widest point. Where you are back there is where the forklift boom will poke through the body of the dirigible.
That forklift will make this blimp look like it's flying, and a handcart suspended from the bottom will finish off the fantasy.
This is an opportunity to do something that actually looks like it could have been built by a pioneer.
In the Granite Park stake, they're celebrating history as the church commemorates 100 years of seminary.
The first seminary was built across from Granite High School.
This float brings together facts,
An accurate depiction of what the seminary building looked like back then.
and fun.
So they're coming around the mountain, flowing through with the seminary and the balloons.
To illustrate how seminary is building and lifting the youth to new heights. The Daybreak stake chose to focus its float on the family.
All the gears on the sides here are all the principles from the proclamation. We have repentance, forgiveness, compassion, love, hope, respect. Prayer is up there.
And it's all powered by faith.
You know, basically, a strong family is everyone's dream. And so, excuse me, so we just thought, you know, that is the ultimate dream, I think, with people. They want to just have a strong family.
That float from the Daybreak stake also has hidden cutouts of the Ochre Mountain Temple throughout. So to see how many you can find and to check out all the floats, tune in to KSL TV this Tuesday, July 24th at 9 a.m. for the Days of 47 KSL 5 parade. Sometimes a lesson is best learned through experience, and a great way to help educate your family about the past is to have them walk where the pioneers walked. So Emily Utt of the Church History Department is with us today. Glad you could be here and to tell us about a couple of historical hikes that families can actually take. And you said that the first one is part of the Mormon Trail. It ends up here at This Is the Place, but it's not the whole trail, obviously.
The whole trail is thousands of miles long.
Yeah.
We're not going to ask you to do that. This little portion of the trail goes from Mormon Flat in East Canyon to Big Mountain. And Big Mountain was the first place you could see the Salt Lake Valley on the trail, and so this was kind of a triumphal moment for Mormon pioneers as they're crossing the plains. The hike now is 4 miles, and the last little bit of it is uphill, so it can be a little tough with little kids, so you might want to hike it in reverse and go backwards down the Mormon Trail. But I like to go and follow them on their journey because you actually walk on the trail that the Mormon pioneers walked on, and you can see some little bits of the trail. There's little bits of rust from wagon tires still on
After
the road.
all these years.
That's all still there. And this is even a trail you can continue on down Big Mountain and then eventually ends up here This Is the Place. It's also a trail that the Donner Party used and the Pony Express used, so it's a very popular and very famous portion of the trail.
Okay. What about Ensign Peak? That's one that I've been on. It's been many, many years, but a lot of families do that. It's one that the whole family could do.
Ensign Peak is probably one of the most famous Mormon hikes in Salt Lake, and it's a pretty easy hike to do with a family for a family reunion or a family home evening. I like to hike in the evening because you can get up there and you can see the entire valley in one nice clean shot. Mormon pioneers hiked it in the days immediately after they entered the valley to kind of get a lay of the land. The first 2 or 3 days after entering the valley, Brigham Young and a group of others went up and hoisted a flag on the site to just kind of commemorate their arrival in the valley and see what was going on.
And so what's still there today up at the top?
There are some historic markers at the bottom and at the top explaining the history of the peak, and as well as a very large monument that was dedicated in the 1930s.
Okay, that's fun. Youth groups, I know a lot of them do that in an easy hike. Okay. And what about your last pick, the Temple Quarry Trail in Little Cottonwood Canyon? I didn't even know about that.
This is more of a nature walk than a trail. It's a really easy one to do with tiny little kids. It's actually at the place where they quarried stone for the Salt Lake Temple, and you can still see remnants of the stone there. There's some bits where they started to quarry them and decided not to take those bits of stone, so you can still see the pins from where they pounded in to try to get smaller bits out. And there's historic markers throughout, so you can walk along and show your children all the great ways that they quarried stone for the temple.
That's great. So, and it's not very far up the canyon, so what, 10, 15 miles?
It's 10, 15 miles from downtown, and it's right at the very mouth of the canyon. You'll actually drive past it as you're driving up to go to the ski resorts.
So easy to find. Okay, well, some good things to do for the holiday and throughout the year. Thanks so much, Emily, for being here with us. Coming up next, we'll head back out front where Ryan Shoup and the Rubber Band will play a song for us.
It was just snow, soft and white.
It's been a pleasure sharing some of our Pioneer past with you today, and we hope you have a great Pioneer Day celebration this coming week. It's our pleasure now to introduce Ryan Shoup and the Rubber Band. They're with us singing How Could I from their CD Brand New Shoes.
How could I forgotten you for so long? Now I'm singing this same sad song. Please forgive me of my wrong. How could I turn my back on a friend, even though a loving spirit you always send? You'll be with me till the end. Oh Lord, I know you're with me every single day, but sometimes it seems so easy to forget. So I hope that you'll have mercy and accept my humble prayer. Please don't give up on me yet. How could I forget that you are over all? As I stumble, as I fall, please help me to stand tall. Oh Lord, I know you're with me every single day. Sometimes it seems so easy to forget. So I hope that you'll have mercy and accept my humble prayer. And please don't give up on me yet. How could I be so blind to see all the blessings that you've given me?